you. You better okay. Come to get you. Okay, a little bit more. Here we come to get you. Okay, come to get you. Okay, a little bit more. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had enough, you better hide your lunch, cause we about to eat that suck.
Okay.
Break, dump, D-Rock go left while I'm back at the can. When I'm done, you're gonna remember my name is H-O-M-E. Boy, look, I'm home, boy. Now that I'm up in my zone, boy. Pack up, I'm sending you home, boy. Take you up out of the dome, boy. If you didn't know, you should've known, boy. Should've thought about changing your tone, boy. Better not let us get you alone, boy. Crack heads like we made a stone, boy. When we come out, you better be gone, boy.
Tell them how we gonna go. Tell them why they don't want to. Tell them why they better run.
It's your girl, Mona B. That was Stand Up and Get Crunk. Keep it locked into 105.1 FM, the music muscle of the shows, guys.
Knox Media Group weather. Download our apps today. Music Muscle of the Shoals, 105.1 FM, and WKAX 1500 AM. Currently 55 degrees. The forecast for this morning, cloudy with a light breeze. Temperature 50. This afternoon, cloud-filled skies with a light breeze with a slight chance of rain. And the temp 71. Then this evening, cloudy with a light breeze with a slight chance of rain with the temp 60. Tomorrow, cloudy with some rain. The temp 61. We are the Knox Media Group, music muscle of the shoals, 105.1 FM and WKAX 1500 AM, bringing you the beats and the weather on the go.
Kiwanis Club of Florence, Alabama is a global community of volunteers enriching the lives of children and has been serving the show's area since 1920.
St. Joseph, Tennessee, and 105.1 W286 TV, Florence, Alabama.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The U.S. has submitted a draft resolution to the United Nations calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza that's tied to the release of hostages held by Hamas. That's what Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Wednesday as he met with leaders in the Middle East. He's set to travel to Israel Friday after meetings in Egypt. Former President Trump will be able to appeal the decision to allow Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis to stay on his Georgia election interference case. Today, a judge granted a request from defense attorneys to ask the state's appellate court for a review of the decision. Last week, a judge ruled that the African-American DA could remain on the case if Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade was removed. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Love and happiness
something that can make you do wrong, make you do right. Yeah. Love. Love and happiness. But wait a minute, something's going wrong. Someone's on the phone, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, talking about how she can make it right. Yeah, yeah. Happiness is when you really feel good about somebody. There's nothing wrong being in love with someone. Yeah. Oh, baby, love and happiness. Love and happiness. I'll be good to you. We'll be together. Yeah. To see each other. Walk away with victory. Yeah. Oh, baby. Love and happiness. Oh, love and happiness.
We'll be talking about today. In the 50 years that I've been in practice, I can essentially limit or categorize, rather, the things that people come to me for. Number one is hormones. We talked about that last week. Number two is weight loss. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And the third thing that people most often come in with problems at their appointment is sexual issues. Now, at this point in life, sex should be pretty much the icing on the cake. Adults should enjoy it. It should be fun and something they look forward to. But often that is not the case. Now, many of us girls didn't really learn a lot about sex growing up because we just didn't talk about it. Or if we did, it was in whispers. I remember when I married my late husband, as they were walking my mother down the aisle to her seat at the wedding, she turned around to me and said, "Is there anything you'd like to ask me?" Well, it's a little bit late, Mom, But in our Southern culture, we just don't talk about sex that often. So today we are going to talk about sex and the things that can interfere with your sexual pleasure and things that can enhance that pleasure. Now, one of the most common things that affect your sexual response is stress. Who does not have a stressful lifestyle? We all do. We've got our work, we've got our home, children, finances, external forces, and if you are stressed, your body does not release the hormones necessary to make you want to have sexual activity. So you've got to find some way to mediate that stress. Now, I'm not a big proponent of filling a person up with antidepressants because frequently those will interfere with your sexual response. You just have no desire to have sex. Yeah, you're depressed or stressed, but you take medicine and that helps the stress, but it also interferes with your sexual response. So find some natural ways to reduce the stress. Go for a walk, exercise. Exercise raises endorphins, and that's what helps with sex. If a relationship is stressing you, cut your ties and move along. It's just not worth it. Life is short. You need to enjoy every single day. And so if the person you're in a relationship with is just not doing it for you, not bringing anything to the table, you're having to work to support everybody and you're having to work to make everybody happy, you've got to work for yourself. I am a huge proponent of self-love. You must love yourself before anyone else can love you. And so keep in mind, stress is a really difficult thing. I have a number of women come in and say, well, yeah, I'll have sex, but while I'm having sex, I'm in my mind making out the grocery list for the week or planning the children's activity. No, that's not how it's supposed to be. Ladies, get it together now. If you are not into it, find out what the problem is and correct the problem. Don't cover it up with pills or potions. Some people say, well, I'll have a few drinks and that'll help. Yeah, it'll turn you into an alcoholic. So find out what the problem is and deal with the problem. The second biggest issue interfering with sexual relationships is menopausal changes. As you get older, your hormones drop, both men and women, but we're talking about the women folk today. We'll talk about men one day here soon, but the women folk, when you begin to become menopausal or your hormones begin to decline, your vagina gets dry. And when those vaginal tissues get dry, they don't stretch anymore. They don't lubricate, and sex can become very painful. It is actually true that if you don't use it, you lose it, because the vaginal tissues can begin to shrink and your vagina gets shorter. And sex, women come in saying it feels like sandpaper. It just hurts. And if something's going to hurt you, you don't want to do it. When your estrogen level drops and your testosterone level drops, your desire for sexual activity goes away. So those can be, again, mediated with either hormone therapy, or if you're not a candidate for the hormone therapy, you can use other medications. They've come out with some really good ones to help with vaginal lubrication. If your vagina is dry, you are going to be more likely to get infections. You are more susceptible to bacterial infections, urinary tract infections, and just the motion of sexual activity can, after a while, you're going to get dry. So if you're having a romantic evening at home, if you're young enough that you can still dance on the tables and swing from the chandeliers, you enjoy sex, you lubricate, but after a little while, you begin to dry out. So if you're feeling friction, get you some lubricants and use. Now, don't get perfumed lubricants. Then they have lubricants with all kinds of additives that heat you up, cool you off, make you taste like chocolate or strawberries. Do not use the flavored, perfumed vaginal lubricants. Your vaginal tissues don't like those things. And as a result, you're going to end up in my office the next morning or two with a vaginal infection. So avoid perfumes, avoid colors. I know they make condoms in all different colors. Sometimes the dyes in those you will be sensitive to. If your partner is using a condom, make sure it is a lambskin condom, not latex condom, because many, many women are sensitive to latex, and that latex is going to cause you a vaginal irritation, which can turn into an infection. So you've got to get all your ducks in a row. Have some lubricant there. One of the best lubricants that I recommend is coconut oil. Coconut oil is naturally antibacterial and it's antifungal, and that gives you a barrier of protection there. If your partner is diabetic, if he has what we call jock itch, that is yeast in a man. And many diabetic men are bad to have yeast in the growing area. And then when you have sexual activity, that's putting that yeast in you, and in a little while you're going to show up in my office with a yeast infection. So if your partner is diabetic and his sugar is not well controlled, make sure that you're either using a condom or what I suggest to many of my women, is to get a little of the creams over the counter, like Monistat is a popular one, and put a little in the vagina beforehand, or use the cream to lubricate him before you have sex, and that gives you a natural barrier. But coconut oil, you can buy it in the cooking aisle at Walmart for about $5. When you first open it, it's solid, but as soon as it touches your skin, it liquefies, and it's a very, very good lubricant. I advise against using Vaseline as a lubricant. That is a oil base that is not water soluble, and it can literally break down the material in a condom, particularly a latex condom. So if you're using Vaseline, stop, because it's going to enhance the possibility of infections there. Always protect yourself, ladies. Anytime you have sex with a man, you are having sex with anybody he's ever had sex with. He's going to retain some bacteria, and he can put it in you, and you can have an infection. Many sexually transmitted infections don't have a lot of symptoms. You may start to have a little unusual discharge from the vagina. And let me tell you, vaginal discharge, that is the way the vagina cleans itself. We think of the vagina as a self-cleaning oven, and that's just the way it self-cleans right there, is to take the bacteria away. But that discharge should never itch, it should never burn, and it should never have an odor. If it does, you better come see me, because there's a problem. But there is a very rampant sexually transmitted infection called chlamydia. People who have chlamydia usually don't know they have chlamydia, males or females. And the symptoms are they'll have a discharge, maybe an increase in a discharge. But at different times of the month, women, you are going to have more discharge than others. So if you're having a discharge that's different or that you haven't seen before, come get yourself tested. Syphilis. We're seeing a lot of syphilis in our area right now. And usually the way that starts is you will have a lesion or sore, and it may be up inside the vagina where you can't see it. And it'll go away on its own, but the infection remains. And syphilis can be deadly. It can travel to your brain. It can travel to different organs. So if you're sexually active, you're not sure about your partner's history, or you have different partners, get yourself tested regularly for sexually transmitted infections. Because the next one that comes along and you have sex with, whatever you have, it's very likely you're going to pass it to them. So be responsible in your sexual activity. Ideally, we'd like for everybody to have one partner in a monogamous relation, but this is the real world, and so sometimes things happen. So be prepared. You may not have a good sex drive. What do you do about that? You've married to a guy, or you're with a guy who's got a really hot libido, and you just aren't into it. Why not? Well, there can be a lot of reasons. Again, stress is one of the major ones. Worry. You know, when I was in the younger days, the worst things we could think about that would happen would be pregnancy, unwanted pregnancy, or a sexually transmitted infection. Well, today there's a lot of things that you worry about. You know, he has this, they come in and they tell me, well, he had this little place on his penis, and I don't know what it was. But you had sex with him anyway? Yeah, I couldn't say no. You know, yeah, I've heard all that. But you are your own best advocate, ladies. You must take care of yourself. There are some things that I can't cure. No healthcare provider can cure. You know, we can treat you and modulate the effects, but there's some things out there that can cause cancer. And, you know, cervical cancer is now listed as a sexually transmitted disease because of the viral spread. You may have heard of genital warts. Medical name for it is condyloma acuminata, a big long name that simply means genital warts. HPV, it is caused by the human papillomavirus. They've now come out with injections that you can take to help prevent the spread of those. It won't clear up the ones that are there, but it can keep you from getting other ones. So you might check into those things like that for protection. But always, girls, if you're out there, especially if you're out on the street, carry condoms. You know, I hear everything. They say, well, he pays more if he doesn't have to use a condom. Is it worth you? Does he pay you enough for your life? No, he doesn't. So I don't buy that story right there. You've got to take control. It's your body. You always have the opportunity to say no. So if your sex drive isn't up where you want it to be, it's probably a hormone issue. The lifestyle we lead today is so busy. I mean, women have children, they have jobs, they have homes. They're always on the go. So even if you are not menopausal, you can have a low testosterone level. And testosterone is the hormone that helps with a good sex drive. You can have it tested with a blood test. Now, just because a little testosterone's good, a lot's not better. I have some ladies come in and they're just mean as snakes. They've got acne, they've got oily skin, their hair's coming out. And I test their hormone levels, their testosterone's extremely high. And I ask them, are you using testosterone? Well, my husband does, or my boyfriend does, and he gave me a shot of his. Oh, please don't do that. No, because a man's testosterone intake is so much higher than a woman should be. Too much testosterone in a woman gives you the same effect as not enough. It must be carefully monitored by somebody who knows what in the world they're doing. So please don't share medicine with your husband. Yeah, it makes him have a good erection, a good sex drive, but in you, it's going to cause you very detrimental effects. If you need testosterone, you need a certain prescribed amount, and you need to be monitored, because if you get too much, it's not a good thing, ladies. You're going to end up with a bald head, a hairy face, be mean, and it's just not a good look. Trust me on that. So if you don't have that good sex drive like you want, number one, slow yourself down, have a seat and rest. Number two, get your hormone levels checked, and don't share medication. Another reason that sex is not always the best is pelvic pain. Women can have issues in the pelvis that make them hurt. And when a woman hurts in the pelvic area, sex is the last thing she's thinking about. What can make this pelvic pain? Well, you can have conditions of the female organs. One very common one is something we call endometriosis. What endometriosis is, the lining of your uterus is called the endometrium. And for some reason that we really don't know why yet, that lining inside the uterus gets outside the uterus and it begins to grow on your pelvic organs, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes. It can grow to your bladder, to your colon. And when that endometriosis gets where it's not supposed to be, that causes pelvic pain. That's one of the most common reasons women come in to see us. Now, when you do a pelvic exam, I can't feel it. When you do an ultrasound, you usually can't see it. So you have to have what's called a laparoscope, and that's a little surgical procedure done by a gynecologist who puts a little light in there, and they look for the endometriosis. It can stop up your fallopian tubes and keep you from getting pregnant. It can cause severe menstrual cramps, but it causes pelvic pain, and it can even cause scar tissue in the pelvis. It can be removed with a laser, and usually that takes care of it. Unfortunately, just because you remove it once doesn't mean it's not going to come back another time. So a laparoscope with a laser to remove endometriosis usually buys you about 2 years before it's back again in 70% of women. So if you're having that vague aching in your pelvis and you just hurt, you might want to be evaluated for endometriosis. Another thing is you can have tumors in your pelvis. the uterus gets these little, or sometimes they're big, these tumors in the uterus called fibroids. Fibroids generally are not cancerous, but they can get very large. They can get the size of melons. And when you are having sexual activity, it hurts. It can cause you to bleed heavily and to have big clots with your period. So if you are hurting with sexual activity, get it checked out. A less common reason, but something that does occur, is called a tilted uterus. Now, out of 10 women, 7 of those women, the uterus will tilt to the front. The uterus is a pear-shaped item or organ, and that is what carries babies, is what helps you have a period. But again, the uterus can be tilted in different directions. If it is tilted to the back, which is called a retroflexed uterus, when the penis comes into the vagina, it can actually bump against the top of the uterus, called the fundus. It's not going to hurt it physically, but it doesn't feel that good to you. So, all right, I'm going to stop here and take a question.
Your first question is, why does it take some women longer to have an orgasm than other women?
All right. Why does it take some women longer to have an orgasm than others? And then some women never have orgasms. So you'll be surprised how many women come in and tell me, I have never had an orgasm. I don't know how. An orgasm, the clitoris is where most women will experience an orgasm. 80% of women prefer a clitoral orgasm. 20% prefer a vaginal orgasm. Why does it take so long? It could be the position that you're having sex in. The clitoris must be massaged by the male's lower pelvis, his genitals. A lot of times the penis doesn't have anything to do really with the orgasm. It's more the positioning. So if you're not getting direct pressure on the clitoris, change positions, and find out. Some women will actually use a vibrator on the clitoris while they're having vaginal sex, and that's perfectly fine to do too. You have to experiment with what works for you. We're all built differently. We all have different shapes and sizes, but it's basically a positioning thing. So, and the next question.
These are questions from callers. Not my question.
But we all wonder.
Yeah. But the next question is,
bringing you the beats and the weather on the go.
It says, I think I'm addicted to sex. What can I do to stop my sex drive from being so high?
Yeah, and there are women who just love sex. They, that's all they think about is when can I have the next sex episode, and that's not abnormal as long as it doesn't interfere with your daily activities. Now, if it gets to be interfering with you're not taking care of your children, your home, yeah, it's a problem. But why do some women have more sex drive than others? It's just the way you're made. It's a hormone thing. Is there a pill to tamper it down? Yeah, we can put you back in balance with, some hormones. But it's just the clitoris sometimes, again, has a lot to do with it. The clitoris loves to be stimulated in a woman. When you have an overly active sex drive, make sure that your clothes in the genital area aren't rubbing the clitoris constantly. And it can even be a neurological condition. There can be certain medicines that can stimulate the clitoris. If you use body lotions, soaps that have anything that tingles in them, that is going to stimulate your clitoris. And the clitoris, when stimulated, tells the brain, hey, I'm ready to get down, So that is one thing. Now, I have had a few patients that have a constant orgasm. I mean, to the point that they cannot function in life. And it is a neurological event when that occurs. But just know that you probably need a hormone panel drawn. You need a vaginal exam or a visual exam of the vulva, the female reproductive area, to see, is there something going on there? But again, some people just love sex, and that's cool. Others don't. As a matter of fact, in our office, for many years would hear women come in and tell me, I don't know how to have an orgasm. I've never had an orgasm. What can I do? I would suggest to them, go to one of the toy stores, buy you some kind of sex toy, use it, find out what feels good to you, what you like, and that way you will know. Men are not mind readers, let me tell you this. So when something feels good, tell them. If they're not sure, tell them what feels good. So many women, when I would recommend to them to go out and get them a sex toy to find out what feels good, they would tell me, I could never go in one of those stores. I'd be too embarrassed. Why don't you keep them here? So as a result, we did develop our own product line. It's called Options by Susan Bentley. In Alabama, we call them medical therapeutic devices, but that is something that helps you to find out what you like. And if you're alone and not in a relationship, you can still have an orgasm. An orgasm once a day, whether manually or with a partner, is good for the soul. And all. Was there another question? Oh, another question here.
Why do some women enjoy oral sex more than vaginal penetration?
They enjoy oral sex because it's putting pressure exactly where they like the pressure. Now, let me tell you, oral sex doesn't come without some risk, so make sure your partner doesn't have any cold sores on his face or anything like that, because you can get herpes from oral sex, and that a lot of people don't know that. But they like the oral sex better, especially if your partner is not extremely well endowed. The vagina lacks a nice penis, but the vagina or the vulva area lacks pressure. So by stimulating orally, you get the pressure exactly where you want it. And that's why many like it like that. Now, we can go on and on and on. I think our time is about up, but if you have questions, continue to send them in, and we'll address it. And we may even continue this conversation a little bit next week, because there are so many other things. Because we've talked about what can interfere with sex, now we need to talk about what can enhance it. Because, again, sex at this point in life is icing on the cake. And if you're like me, you like a lot of icing on that cake. So we'll talk a little bit more next week. This is Susan Bentley, women's health nurse practitioner at Options Wellness. We've joined with Knox Media to bring you these topics, so feel free to talk with us. Thank you so much.
You guys tune in every Thursday at 11 a.m. and listen to Miss Susan Bentley. She speaks the truth. So today was about how to make sex more enjoyable.
No, the problems to keep you from enjoying it. So next week we'll talk about how we can make it more enjoyable, how to enhance the experience.
Okay. Well, sex is good. And y'all tune in to 105.1 FM, the music muscle of the shows.
Love and happiness. Something that